It's 2025, and the world of IT asset management and the entire IT is changing. We have FinOps competing, rightfully or not, we'll discuss it, with IT asset management right now. We have AI endangering different IT jobs. We have in general a pretty eventful economic and political environment right now in 2025. So I have my friend Bill Talbot with me today, who's one of the founders of the IT Asset Management Cooperative on the other side of Atlantic from me in the United States of America. It's a global organization, though. And we recently had a conversation which led to creating this live event, which is very unusual for this channel, where we talk mostly about Microsoft licensing. Bill mentioned that about 75 people recently reached out to him through the co-op channels and told him that they either lost their job or about to lose their job in IT asset management. And there may be various reasons for that. And what we wanted to talk today about is, how do you find yourself in these changing circumstances? How do you find your new role? How do you redefine yourself and go back to being employed and maybe finding even a better position? Hello and welcome to SAMexpert TV. Hello, Bill. I'll pass the mic to you. Please introduce yourself and carry on.
I appreciate that, Sasha. My name's Bill Talbot. A lot of people know me as Mr. Bill within the asset management world. Hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration management. That's my world. I was literally an end user support technician that had the role had 30 years ago, and got that email like a lot of us do. Okay, now you need to track everything you're managing, right? And from there, being able to say, I had to figure out how to do it, right? And I did that. And now over the last 30 years, I've helped thousands, whether it's public speaking, whether it's doing webinars now live from that standpoint. That's the whole idea behind the co-op, is being able to be more informative. And from that, that's what makes it fun. And it's part of my giving back. It's also what I really enjoy, is what I found out is being able to coach. And what I found and what Sasha was talking about here is, when I started hearing about people losing jobs, we all know asset management. It's like it's one of the most critical aspects of the entire enterprise, right? And from that, being able to say, okay, why, right? And so I would start asking that. It's like, well, due to it could be acquisitions or divestitures, but there was a lot about cost cutting, right? And it's like, okay, how do you work through this? How do you go that next step? Because literally, and trust me, that 75 has been growing. It's been growing a lot. And I don't say that from scarcity perspective, because we know the role is even more important. It's being able to say, okay, how can we help better communicate, et cetera? But I thought about, it's like, okay, I can hit it from a couple angles from the corporate side, which is usually what we do, Sasha. But I want to hit this from the practitioner side, as far as figuring out, okay, how can we make sure we're aligned for that next role? And that's where we want to have this two-way dialogue.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I can personally recommend reaching out to Bill, because the ITAM Cooperative is actually, unlike many other organizations, it's an actual cooperative of ITAM people. And I've been to the previous events organized by the ITAM Cooperative, and I think the unique character of those events was, to my massive surprise, is nobody actually pitched about themselves. Yes, people would introduce themselves, but all the conversations that we had were purely practical, purely exchanging advice. So yeah, Bill, I didn't want to ask this question. But I'm sorry. Let's quickly look at this. What do you think is going on right now? Please don't spend too much time on this. But why are we in this changing circumstances?
Well, it's changing because of a couple of reasons, right? One is communication or awareness within the organization, is being able to say, how are we fit, and we become comfortable, right? So our finger on the pulse, and I say that not tongue in cheek, I say that from our connection with executives. So they're aware and say, okay, how important is ITAM, versus just saying, oh gosh, this ITAM group, we're going to get rid of it. And when they understand the importance of it, it's a whole different discussion. They might reduce it. That's great, but it's being more strategic. So you have that factor. Number two, they're looking for quick cost-cutting measures. The entire industry and the entire world's cost-cutting right now, Sasha. So they're just trying to remove the fat, but what they don't realize, most of the executives, is how important asset management is for the entire enterprise. And we talk about, you look out from a software side, and I hit it holistically, right? But even it's like, how does the business operate without the hardware, software, the virtual, the cloud working within it today? It doesn't, right? They want to flip off a switch. And I look at it that way. So that's not having that clarity there is really where we're coming from. And that's where, okay, we need to better communicate. We need to better do that. And it's not a slam on anybody when I say that, but this is how we grow. And that's the fun part, is how do we make that more strategic?
So what I'm concluding from what you just said is you need to grow to find your next role. You need to grow. Mm-hmm. It's obvious, isn't it? I mean, we're not yep. telling a wisdom previously unheard of, but there mm-hmm. are certain aspects also in the growth of an ITAM professional, which you just mentioned. Communication, yep. learning communication skills is very important. Also, actually, to successfully passing a job interview. Not only that, do you think that one of the reasons ITAM is still seen as potentially cost center is because we're not able to communicate the benefits of what we're doing?
Absolutely. And Sasha, you've been part of those experiences when we talked about the summit, right? Is when we talk about the summit, it's about our communication, how we dialogue, as well as how we're doing that connection. Because when you're part of the portfolio, or I'll just give an example. When you know that you've done your job, it isn't about your repetitiveness, right? But it's when those executives, the higher level officials, or whomever it is within your organization, they start talking about ITAM, hardware, software configuration management, depending on what your role is, right? And they say, oh, wait a minute, we're going to talk about this topic. We're missing someone. Where is, for example, Sasha in this conversation? And that's where the power is that communication and that vibrancy, because you know you're part of the team. And that's usually what's getting forgotten here.
Absolutely. So, yeah, please carry on. Sorry for interrupting.
And from there, that helps the alignment, right? Because you find out with those stakeholders, whether executives or even your peers, you have that alignment, you're working with them, and they're going to say, oh, wow, yes, we need to make sure we have Bill or Sasha in the conversation. But also, more importantly, if they can't be there, they're going to include you after the fact and say, okay, from now on, make that happen, as well as provide the awareness to the executive. Because what we forget about, it's easily forgotten about, and it happens throughout all organizations, right, is the decision makers and the executives. Everyone says the executive's fault. Yeah, they're cost cutting. They've got limited budget. There's all sorts of things, right? But when they ask their first lieutenants and say, maybe you're not a direct relationship to the CFO or the CIO or the CXO, whoever it is, right, is when you talk to the first lieutenants who know who you are, they know the role, they know the importance behind it, and they're supporting you, they're going to say, hold on a second, we can't go any further. And that dialogue, I guess it's kind of repetitive, right? You have that governance as well as the oversight and support that you're needing. And that's where you're with your tribe. I'll just call it that way, right? Because that's what you're trying to do, is create that momentum. And you've done such a great job getting in there, helping further make that happen. But how are you further communicating? Come back to your point, that communication, right? And that's where it makes it fun. I know we're talking about asset management, IT things being fun, right? But when you have that dialogue, it's huge, right?
I can argue that IT asset management is fun. I have a personal story to share. When I moved to the United Kingdom in 2013, I still had SAMexpert operating from a European country, but I really wanted to settle in the UK. And for me, the only way at the moment was to drop the project, put it on pause, and find a job. simply, which was, to be honest, for a serial entrepreneur, that was a challenge to switch to the job mindset. And when I wrote my CV, one of the things I put at the top of the CV, I'm passionate about software asset management. And I sent it to a CV reviewer who sent it back to me and said, please remove this BS because nobody's passionate about software asset management. Well, I am.
Exactly.
Many of us are fanatical about it.
Mm-hmm. And you should be shy about that. And that's the most important part. We get apprehensive. Sometimes you can be intimidated because the executives don't support you, et cetera. And you should not be apprehensive. That's where you raise your hand. It's like, you realize we can do more. You realize how I can help you for that alignment. And that's where that connection all of a sudden will help light you up. And that's what does it for me, Sasha, whenever I work in a customer or even talk with, say, members of my community, is when that, I'll just say the light bulb goes on and they really enjoy what they're doing. And all of a sudden they realize they're on the right path and their path, and they're down the path they want to be. That's what makes the fun part here. It's not just about inside the organization, but it's for the person. And rehumanizing that part of the leadership within ourselves is extremely critical here. And that's what I'm talking about, is how we do that.
Let me rewind a little bit to the very beginning of the slide. And the question I want to ask is, as we announced this live, we said, if you just lost your job in ITAM or something is happening to it and you're looking for a new one, how do you find, where do you start? How do you find your new role in ITAM if you want to stay in ITAM, or maybe slightly define that role somehow? Where do you begin? Let's give us like a generic advice.
Oh, I love the idea.
Which is not theoretical. Let's just give a few maybe scenarios. I know it's a tough question, and I know those recipes might not apply to everyone, but let's try.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing you have to figure out is, what do you really enjoy from that self-assessment, right? What do you enjoy about ITAM? And don't say everything. Everyone says, oh, you have to do all these activities in asset management. There's hardware, software, cloud, and it's like you get consumed. We talked about that, right? You have all these different standards. And I'm not saying those are not important, but you need to work on what you're really good at and refine that. Because again, it's about making you happy as much as the role. And how do you look at that? How do you work to make that happen is the important part. Is when you look and see what you really enjoy, then you can help that alignment, Sasha. It help that alignment to say, here's the role I'm really seeking. So easily. And here's why I go there. And I had a dialogue within the co-op in the last couple of weeks on this. Is everyone's like, oh, I'm applying for jobs and not getting a response. Because there's lots of roles out there. You see asset management, whether it's a contracting job, full-time job, there's all sorts of stuff out there. But and some people get the job and literally 6 weeks later, they're let go because they have the certification, but they don't have the experience. So where I'm going with that is being able to say, okay, what is the role that you really enjoy? And don't worry about all the certifications. Yeah, it's great. But again, that's checkbox. If you don't have the experience, that you can't talk the talk, you can't walk the walk. I'll just call it that way. And being able to say, how do you further expand, right? You have to go with what's already in your brain. And it could be anything in the life cycle, right? From cradle to grave, I call it that way, from the initial acquisition all the way to disposition. Yours might be software asset management, and that's your thing. And you like licensing. You're not worried about the procurement. You worry about the data that comes in. That's great. That might be your role. Or maybe you're the technical person. You like the data to further refine that. And that's your specialty, but you're getting overwhelmed because you're supposed to be doing everything, but you don't like everything. Be honest with it, right? And you might say, well, it's going to cost me my job. No, it's not. You're providing clarity, right? You're providing clarity. And that's what we're all afraid of, is losing what it is, right? And it's important to set those expectations, to say, okay, here's where I am individually, as far as where I'm going, because it's about that why. Why are you doing what you do? Why do you enjoy it? Because when you do that, it allows you to say, I figured it out. Like, for example, when I did my why, Sasha, yours is very similar, I think, is I learned that I love to bring people together to collectively determine our next steps. I totally love it. That's what I do. That's the whole purpose behind the co-op is I love to bring people together. It's not about just it's not pontificating. Actually, you've seen me even in session when we have like the summit, right? Am I speaking most of the time? No, right? I mean, I'll speak some, but it's about hearing everybody else and have that dialogue, and that two-way dialogue. That's extremely important. The same holds true in our job. And we forget that. Go for it.
I'm going to continue putting it to you on the spot. So, which, by the way, connected to what to one of the questions we got from LinkedIn. How do you manage the expectations from the employer? And please let me also finish. I'll add my words to this. From the employer about the need to know every publisher's licensing structures. So I guess there is, as you said before, people are losing their jobs. As you just said a couple of minutes ago, there are actually hundreds of roles open right now. How do you connect what you want to do with what they expect from you? And this question, for example, because a massive part of ITAM roles, their job descriptions are ridiculous. They're just ridiculous.
That's a good word for it, yes.
Don't exist. You can't be an expert in IBM, Microsoft, and Oracle at the same time. It doesn't work like that. But you're expected to be. And maybe you don't want to do that. So how do you navigate? How do you find that, or how do you apply to those jobs that you want to do?
Well, as you look through that, in the way I've been coaching my again folks within the co-op the last couple of weeks, like the last couple of months actually, is I said define your own job description. I know, totally taken upside down. You totally from the industry is, but you think about, okay, I'm going to fill it in. And back to your point, Sasha, we have so many roles and responsibilities. How are we going to do it? Okay, it's overwhelming. It's not possible. Been there too, so I totally get it. But when you define your own job description and you push back and say, here's what I'm really good at, puts it in context. Puts it totally in context because one, it's aligning where you want to be and where you want to go. And you're going to have some pushback. You are, because everyone says, oh, I want you to do everything. And I see it from an outsourcing perspective all the time because some other things I do, right? Contracting and working like that. But when you identify what you are, they need to know that. Like for me, and I'll just use me as an example, right? I'm good in the process. I'm doing that. But when it comes to licensing, that's not my area. Can I speak to it? I can. But do I know all the ins and outs of Oracle or Microsoft, et cetera? No. But that's also where you have your peers help with that instead of just having it all on your shoulders.
Yeah. Your peers. This is how you actually you need to find your cohort. You need to find your crowd you talk to. It's very difficult to walk alone. Which is, by the way, a shameless plug. There's going to be another ITAM summit this year. It's going to be not in Atlanta. It's in Knoxville. Am I correct? Knoxville, Tennessee?
Yeah, Knoxville, Tennessee. Absolutely. In northeastern Tennessee, right in the mountains. Mm-hmm.
The QR code that's on the screen right now, here. It's a QR code for the page. And if you have any questions, by the way, when you get to that page, if anything is not clear, you can find Bill on LinkedIn. He's present on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn, and ask your questions about this summit, or even maybe discuss a possibility to present, as long as it's not a sales pitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, what we had in 2024, in 2023, I was, by the way, surprised by that. In 2023, that it was a cold room, but it was a warm crowd.
Very warm crowd.
Your decision to take away the chairs and just create a round table, that was brilliant. I've never seen it like that. And then what we did is for 2 days, yes, there were presentations, but there were also active discussions. And again, I've never been in that sort of environment where it's so electrified by people genuinely sharing. So yeah, this is the end of my shameless plug, because I think I've never been to anything like it before. So, but going back to the subject of not only finding your job, I know it's a good idea, but let's advocate why it's good to be in a community, in a cohort, when you're looking for a new job. What are the benefits of that?
Oh, well, it's the collaboration, right? For example, if you look at what we have within the summit, right? We have, it's a lot of friends of mine that I've been doing it 30 years, so it's not a day or two. And yes, I know I should be having a cane and et cetera I've been doing it too long, right? But tongue in cheek, when you're around peers, you're going to realize you're exchanging ideas that they've already been here and they're willing to help you and review and provide feedback and insights. That's where you start gaining your own momentum, because again, it's about the mindset. And I hate to put it quite like that, but it's true. We all easily say, okay, well, we'll have our pity party. And I'll just say that, being respectful of everybody. You should. Absolutely. It's okay how I have it. But it's also being important to pull yourself back. And within, to your point, when you're around peers, that's what they're doing. They're doing that. And I'll give an example right here from me, right? Within the community, I've had a lot of changes, et cetera. You know what keeps me going? Folks like Sasha, folks like Jeremy. And I say that as not as a shameless plug, but actually as true friendship. And from that standpoint, that's what keeps me moving as well, is when I see there's momentum there and I see friends actually holding myself accountable. And that's the whole idea behind a community around peers. You're holding yourself accountable as well as they're helping hold you accountable. And trust me, I've been called out plenty, a couple of different things. But when you see that, it keeps you energized. And that's the important part. We all go through the muck. We all go through this muck. We all go through change. I mean, I've even had a change for what I do full time because I actually help with different types of services and promote and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, that role's changing. And I've told them, I don't want to do that role. They go, really? It's like, it's not being bold. Well, it is being bold. It's not being arrogant. But I said it because I know I know what my why is. I know what I'm really good at and where they want to take me. It's like, that's not me. Right. I'd much rather, for example, Sasha, I'll give an example. I'd much rather be doing sessions like these all day long versus just worrying about pontificating and put proposals together, things like that. There's something to be said for that.
We have a few questions that for some reason I can't see in the chat here on the Restream.
I can see them.
Well, you don't see that one. It's on LinkedIn. So Robert Collins asked us, why the defensive posture around our passion towards ITAM? If most companies do not yet fully recognize the value or understand the challenge, seems to be to define and illustrate this to potential customers or to IT-related stakeholders and senior management. Defensive posture. I guess, well, I'll answer from myself.
You hit this just like I do.
I don't think we need to defend. I don't think we need to defend ITAM when we're looking for a job, because if the company doesn't recognize the value of ITAM, they won't be advertising the job. So that's kind of the first consideration, which is obvious. Again, I'm stating obvious things. But if a job role is under risk and you are passionate about ITAM, it doesn't always transpire that you are, and it may not be even your fault. It may be just other things, other reasons why this is
leadership happening. Not talking about it, managers.
But if you're asking from the point of view of in general, why do we advocate and be defensive about our passion towards ITAM? We shouldn't be. I mean, I'm past that point. When you hit 50 years old, you stop caring about small things, about people not caring about your passions. You just keep being passionate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether I answered your question or made it even worse, but it is what it is. Well, this is a great comment. A lot of Gen Z professionals are stepping away from ITAM, saying it's not challenging enough. But dig deeper, and it's really about limited learning resources like building ELP for tier 1 vendors. Isn't it the perfect time to level up our content and keep things fresh to help them grow? When you say our content, do you mean this channel or what we publish on LinkedIn? So interestingly, though, if you come to the ITAM summit, the conversations revolve around not just. We don't talk about licensing there at all. The conversation is more about personal growth and growing inside ITAM. Going
Nope.
above that, just an ELP role, because strictly speaking, how long can you be passionate about building ELPs? Not long. I give it to the most, to the
Yeah.
most, say there's a young and passionate and maybe somebody who likes data analysis. How long will they survive in just building ELPs? 5 years. You need to move on. You need to grow. So there's
Mm.
more. It's what you do with that ELP. It's how do you derive value from those minuses and pluses? Because here's a big secret: your bosses or your customers, they don't actually care about those numbers unless they
Exactly.
have somebody who's translating those numbers into business value. They care about the so what aspect of it, the light bulb moment. Okay, we have this balance of licenses. What do we do about it, and whether should we even? This is the language you should be able to learn to speak. And from that point of view, I agree. We are probably lacking that kind of content, taking business decisions based on the ELPs. But if somebody wants to open a new channel or a new blog platform, or publish a new course just to
Hmm.
about the basics of Oracle licensing, which, by the way, there's a lot already, by all means, come to me. I'll support you. Bill, do you want to say anything? Because I think you may have see a
I
different.
do. I think it's rather interesting. I will say I've done it for 30 years. And I've never been bored. I've never said I'm going to walk away. I will fully embrace it. I'm one of the crazy ones that stayed around. And the reason why, it's ever changing, it's ever evolving, right? 30 years ago, did we talk about FinOps? We did not. We actually were doing FinOps with an asset management, believe it or not, right? So that was just part of what we did. We talk about chargebacks, how we're doing allocation on the front end, not reactive, but we were being proactive. We understood who the alignment was. We understood the financials. And that's where FinOps has gone, because asset management, we made it, to your point, very cookie cutter and said, okay, we're not going to worry about the financials, or we're going to be very rudimentary with it. So they said, well, we can't do that with cloud. Well, no kidding, right? Because on the back end, you're getting a bill for $30,000 for an instance that's been run, or the cloud instance has been running, and you only had a budget for 10, right? So you're going to hear it from an executive. But where I'm going with that is being able to say, okay, how do you really focus, right? How are you looking at the bigger picture? And it's going back to that, is being able to say, okay, how can you grow? How can you grow? Where do you want to grow? And those that are leaving, I'll be honest, I'd love to talk to them. That's my challenge for them. I'd love to talk to them to say, really, what's doing it? And here's the example I'll leverage that, Sasha. And I've done this. The co-op's been around for 5 years, and I still have folks that reach out to me individually just to kind of pull my ear, which is cool. But every time I talk to him, and I had one guy, one individual based out of India, he had the same role for 7 years, doing just receiving and procurement and those type of activities. But he didn't know what he was supposed to. He's like, I'm bored. I don't know what else to do. I don't know about the entire life cycle. I said, and I asked him, I said, entire life cycle? I said, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. I go, really? He says, I take an order, I put the purchase, I send it to the vendor, I receive it, I send it out, someone else installs it. That's all I do. I go, would you like to really understand what you do? He says, sure. So we spent probably about 3 hours walking through the entire life cycle. He goes, I never knew. I said, you do about half the entire life cycle from everything you just told me. You need to take credit for that. So it's that informative side. People don't realize what they're doing, and why is that the case? Because we make asset management so transactional from a resource perspective, to say, here's the task you're going to perform, and we don't inform them on saying how the handoff, who else is being impacted, why do we need to make sure the data is accurate, and that's usually where the breakdown happens. Again, if they're getting bored and they're getting out of the industry, I'd love to talk to them, because probably more than likely I can give them some ideas where they're going to be on their terms and not be. I'll put it this way: I've never been bored in 30 years with asset management, whether it's a baseline inventory manager, whether I talk about asset management, whether I talk about outsourcing in the look into overall compliance type reportings, or helping coach others do the implementations, talk about integrations. And again, I'm not trying to do stump the chump or anything like that. I've just 30 years, you do a lot. But it's also about, that's also where the industry as a whole, I'm trying to help with the co-op to say, okay, let's challenge this. If you want to be challenged, we'll challenge. I'm not doing the entry level 101, 100, 200 level stuff, right? It's about being able to say, how can we look at the overall bigger picture and help ourselves grow? Because that's the fun. Again, I want everyone to be as passionate as I am and as you are, Sasha. That's what helps.
Robin is saying life cycle processes begin with specification and acquisition. That's such a deep question. I'm not ready for it. But Bill, by all means, please take.
Well, the life cycle processes begin with specification, then acquisition.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it's about the catalog, right? So that's what you're talking about on that front. So if you know what you're going to have for standards, hardware, software, cloud, whatever, right? That's part of your service catalog. That ties to asset management is technical service catalog specifically, right? And then you have to put the request and worry about, okay, do I have to acquire? Do I not? So you're right. It's about specification, absolutely, but it's also about being able to say on that acquisition, who you're talking with. Do you have multiple vendors? And I'll make that happen. But it is about a cradle to grave, because when I say cradle, it's about understanding upfront what you're going to be using within the enterprise. That's part of your standards, hardware, software, whatever it is. That's where I would take that one, Sasha.
Thank you. We have a question from Rene. What virtual options are available for those of us unable to travel to the summit? I've been asking you that question for 3 years, Bill. Shall we have a live feed this year? What do you think? maybe not public, maybe closed, but some kind of a virtual option. It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
It's difficult.
It's difficult. I will see what my options are. I'm not going to guarantee that part, but let me see what I can do to make that happen. There's definitely some challenges to help make that happen from a production standpoint. And keep in mind, we're very also within the summit, and the purpose why it's in person is the collaboration. What Sasha was mentioning before, that collaboration is extremely powerful. Because what we actually do is when we'll say, for example, Sasha's, he's been a speaker last every time so far. It's about the interaction in the room. So you have the Q&A, but then we do breakouts. What's been learned, we exchange those ideas. That is beyond powerful when we do that. That collaboration, that connection, you get to meet new folks, and that part. Yeah, you can do things virtually. Absolutely. It's a totally different experience. And trust me, I've done Zoom since the beginning. I've done webinars for years. It's totally different when you do it in person, and your enthusiasm goes up, your drive goes up, your connection goes up, and that's extremely powerful.
Well, we have so many new questions. I apologize for those questions that I am postponing, because I want to keep the conversation in a certain way of flow, because we have a response to what you said before. Bill, I completely agree with you. Over time, people stop acknowledging their own work because it becomes routine. Oh my God, that applies to us as well.
That's exactly us too.
Appreciated it too, as it starts to feel transactional. Ironically, when everything runs smoothly, recognition. I need to read from the chat. Recognition tends to fade.
One more time when it begins to fade. Well, the recognition of yourself, right? And it's important this is about yourself as well as how you promote your communication internally. So it's two-way street. Is if you're tracking internally, this is about stacking the goodness, not the badness, right? And being able to grow. When you track that, which we usually don't, we're horrible at tracking things. We're good at looking at our asset inventories. We're looking at software, doing our compliance, but we're really horrible about helping ourselves grow. That's just us, right? So we'll just say it's not something we've learned in primary school. It's not something we learn in any type of certification. But when you take that, your successes, and you say, wow, here's where I've been. Again, that's part of that self-assessment I talked about in the beginning. When you say real self-assess where you are, you might find out Oracle license is not for you. Totally awesome. Congratulations. You just came to that realization. And you're really good at Microsoft? go down the Microsoft path, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, for example, there's one person here online. And there's lots of good people I've known here. Like I said, I've been around 30 years. Roger Mallett, I'll just call him out. Awesome friend, been around him for years, great speaker, presenter, et cetera. And from that standpoint, he taught me a lot as far as how to help do that connection in so many fronts. And I can't think, I have lots of individuals like that, right? But putting that straight out is huge because but he also is one to say, let's get back to basics. When we make complexity, the complexity, of course, is the first thing that helps drive failure, right? We get things complex, okay, we forget about it. But that's one thing he taught me really well, really early in our times, whether it's Peregrine, HP, and even still in the industry, do things like that. And that's the refinement where we have to figure out where we want to be. So that's where I would hit that.
Couple of well, we have so many questions. Oh my God,
this is awesome.
But I want to put this one because it's been repeated a few times already in the chat in different forms. Is it feasible and relevant for one person to work as both as SAM, and FinOps consultant, or is it better to have two separate consultants, one specialized in SAM and one in FinOps? Can you be at the same time a SAM and a FinOps person?
Depends upon where your frame of mind is. I'll give an example. Sasha, I think you actually would do really well as FinOps as well as SAM. But I say that also because your level of maturity within SAM is where you can complement with FinOps. Entry level type individuals will have to grow into that. I mean, for me, would I take on FinOps plus what I know knowledge? I would do because I've done that, right? So it's not, and again, I'm not saying it's not possible, but you should not force the person into it. You need to see where their head is and see if it's not about taking a certification exam either. It's about saying, okay, can you do it? And if they can't, don't ridicule and fire them. More say, okay, tell us what you're really good at, and we're going to find someone else to take care of that other gap. We forget about the human factor in that whole process. That's usually what happens there. So I'll say it depends, Sasha, for me.
I'll probably shorten what you just said and also add a bit of a British flair to this. Is if you think about being a SAM and a FinOps person yourself, absolutely go for it. Just understand that you need to level up above just licensing and ALPs. That's how you grow into SAM and FinOps. But if you're an employer and you're looking for a person and lots of applicants to a role that you advertise as a SAM and FinOps at the same time, you're bloody delusional. Go get yourself checked.
That's fair.
I'm sorry.
The bloody illusional, yes.
It's a very rare combination these days, and I'll go on a tangent. I'll say something that I keep noticing because we work SAMexpert. We work with enterprises. Small businesses rarely benefit from our services because we're expensive, and what we're noticing since about 2 years ago is that unfortunately, for some reason, what are multiple reasons, and we can discuss them if we want to. There is instead of collaboration between SAM and FinOps teams, the new FinOps teams are being created completely from scratch and are made in some cases to compete with the software asset management teams. Mm-hmm. That blows my mind because, as Bill, as you just said, we were doing FinOps in ITAM before it was FinOps. It didn't appear out of nowhere. It was just somebody decided, let's give it a fancy name and build a framework around it. It's not new. Cloud didn't appear yesterday. I mean, how long has the cloud existed? 15 years plus. That's how long. That's how long. More than that. And there's no cloud. There's somebody else's computer. And creating these new departments and making them compete damages the company. I know many corporate cultures are built on this competition between departments. These two need to work together because they feed into each other. How do you successfully lift and shift something and move into the cloud and pay less if you even care about the costs? By making them collaborate, by looking at the legacy. Who knows all about the legacy? The ITAM people. Who knows all about what's in the cloud? No, I'm saying all, maybe not all, but it's the FinOps people. Talk to each other, collaborate, and maybe having that person that is at the same time SAM and ITAM in an executive position, and I'm not saying executive C-level, third, fourth, fifth level of management, depending on the size of the enterprise, is actually a good point, because they need to be that one center that talks to the board and uses those departments and doesn't let them fight. Children, stop. I can get very emotional about it. I apologize.
Well, I saw the comment just come in about the cloud was invented by IBM in the 70s. You're right, it was, because it was a private network. And IBM they were doing their thing, absolutely. So you started there, but being able to further evolve that and communicate it from a maturity standpoint, that's what takes time. And you can't, to your point, you have to be collaborative, not combative on that piece, right?
Some companies have already separate teams for each role, while others combine them. Both are good options, in my view. I mean, by all means, keep separate teams. Don't let them compete. Don't let them fight for attention, bonuses, budgets. That's what kills it. We don't want to talk to some people. And I mean, seriously, just recently I did a calculation for bring your own license calculation for an international company. 2 million a year. 2 million a year was wasted because the departments didn't talk to each other. If it's money that you are happily throwing away, maybe you should give it to us. I can give you my bank account details.
I'll take donations. It's all good.
Exactly. Donate it to Co-op so we can organize bigger conferences.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's one thing we found out even in doing the co-op and the presentations, right? So we actually have a procurement manager and procurement director that comes in, and she talks about the collaboration all the time, about the collaboration, how she works with the rest of the team to make sure on the same path. So not just about cloud and FinOps, or we talk about SAM, ITAM, or even configuration management, because you need those teams, but we need to be interlinked with each other, because at that point, that's where that collaboration, that's when you start seeing the money savings. Again, they're inviting you to the table. For example, that procurement manager we're talking about, right? I think she's a director now, actually. And I saw her when she used to be the software asset management person. I've known her for a while. And when you see her and how passionate she is, she says, I'm absolutely keeping my SAM team intact. And she says, I don't currently own them, but I'm taking them on. And that's what she's done last year. She actually took software asset management back under her wing, and she's making sure that they have the support they need. That's the dialogue you need with your team members, is that support.
One of the questions we didn't put on the screen, which resonates with what we discussed before, Bill. I think you can find it in your own feed as well. I have a hard time with profiles that require entry levels to manage all aspects of an asset's lifecycle from requisition to disposal, because it requires to be proficient in all best practices, KPIs, which dilutes the talent. Human nature would rather only do what's easiest and only what interests them. It's a good challenge. Well, I mean, I would add to that probably, and it's not only what people do, which is true, by the way. They will just do what's the easiest, what's closest to their chest. But when we put too much on a single person or a very small team, they just don't have the time and the energy. People can only is a massive secret, for all the corporate people. People can only be productive 2 hours a day out of 8. So when ITAM matures, yes, the costs will grow. But going back to our initial sentiments about communicating the value of ITAM, Because it's not only about finding your own job, a new job, your new role in ITAM. It's also about you're in that role, for example, alone, and you may be thinking about, you know what, I'm tired of it. I'm doing too much.
Mhm.
Maybe as an option, consider communicating an actual value in actual monetary numbers of hiring somebody to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Making that, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000 a year, that range, maybe less, maybe more. Present it back to the business to say, yes, it is going to cost you 100K, but we have this area still uncovered, untapped, whatever the word is. And if we bring another talent into this team, we'll return 10 million in 1 year. This is your ROI. This is what we also teach in our cohort. How do you stop talking about licenses and start talking about money to the business? Do you want to add your sentiment in response to this question? It could be different to what I said, Bill.
Well, it's so when we look at the profile from entry level individuals, right? As far as understand the entire life cycle, especially at entry level, keep in mind they could be coming out of school, they can come from other roles, etc. They're going to learn this from scratch. That's what they're doing, and that's what you're looking at entry level. And typically, it's because of cost. I get it, but the reality is, if you're going to help mentor someone to go in those skills, you need to, if you need someone to have those skills, typically they need to be mentored into it, and not just say, okay, here's that role. And as we all know from asset management, sometimes we get this role because no one else is taking it and they just want to fill a spot. So we ended up in it. I mean, look at the example I gave for me. I was an end user support technician. Now, part of an outsource agreements and now track everything that there was inside the environment. And little did I know when that happened, I turned out to be where I am right now, even talking freely like this discussion 30 years later, right? But I will also say that's where you find your own why, and to figure out, okay, where are you with that? Because what you're going to do with those individuals, if you're looking for entry level, great. Just realize you're not going to have a large expectation of the entire life cycle. You have some mentoring, that's great. But also being able to say, how can you help them grow? And are they wanting to grow? And that's the important part. If you find someone that they're just taking a job to take the job, they're not aligned. And that's definitely from a strategy, how they're looking at what they're doing. They don't know what they want to do, or you've not fully defined it, or they just haven't found the fun part of their looking with an asset management today. That's usually what happens. If you're looking from the entire cradle to grave, it depends on your maturity level, what you want from that individual. It really does. So that's where I would take that, Sasha. It's it depends answer. Did you go on mute? Or am I mute? Lost the... Did we lose me? I think I'm here.
Me, I am on mute, but I can't explain why.
It's all good.
Something weird is happening on my computer today. I apologize. Technology. You're not on mute. We can hear you, Bill. So surprisingly, people don't recognize this value of ITAM beyond just ITAM. Cybersecurity has been using software asset management, IT asset management, and CMDBs for a very long time. And why, Bill? Please explain to me as well. Why is this still not recognized? At least widely. I mean, I know that U.S. Department of Defense in the late 90s already had this initiative to make software management feed into cybersecurity, but that was that was DoD. What about just normal organizations? Why is this not recognized? It's a massive value of ITAM, cybersecurity.
It goes back to the discussion we had a little bit ago, right? That everyone's in silos. That's what's happened there. You think about how cybersecurity started, right? Cybersecurity started because you had a breach, whether you're talking about Equifax, et cetera, and actually know the person was impacted on Equifax, just as an example, right? And it wasn't in the person that, if you look at that write up as an example for the cybersecurity and just Equifax as an example, if you look at the write up that happened in Congress, and this individual who's all over the news, et cetera, that was, I'll just say, scapegoat for it, right? He actually had to go in front of Congress and defend himself. What happened? Look at that write up. You have over 100 entries from that, and all those interviews is the best way to put it. And he was in Congress, as you see in the big TV. He was in Congress being interviewed. Why did this happen? Right? Over 100 entries saying asset management was not where it needed to be, even though it was cybersecurity, because the executives, they shrugged their shoulders. It wasn't important. They were willing to take that risk. I'm just using it as an example, Sasha. But to your point, you've got to figure out, okay, how do you drive that? How do you make sure, again, that alignment, that awareness, where you're tracking your successes, where you can identify the failures that you can grow from. Who else can you have it? Even the cybersecurity and the different teams. This is where that collaboration happens, as well as the governance. And that's usually what's missing there is that overall governance.
Roger asked a question that aligns to what you just said, sort of. What will be the cost of ITAM risk? Much higher cost. Important to invest in ITAM best practice. I can't, this is so obvious. I can't disagree with this on any level.
Yeah, no, it's interesting when you talk about risk. Right?
How do we communicate this? See, we're all going back to, we had a presentation, was it 23 or 24? I talked about internal marketing. Treat your communication to the bosses as a marketing of as a business to business marketing campaign. Yep. You need to learn to talk the language. Another, just to continue on this example, a cyber attack takes place. ITAM managers ask, where else have we got these devices or software? And they need info now. Absolutely. 100%.
And that's been the case for 30 years, right? Even when we used to have the SQL injections. I knew a company went totally down because of SQL injection. The team that actually helped shut SQL injection down and identify those systems was the asset management team.
Bill, just to continue this, because we have about 8 more minutes. I actually want to put that slide of yours on the screen. If you want to talk us through it, please. The job strategy.
Yeah, because Sasha, you and I know we can talk forever on these topics, and I know some other peers on here. We can keep going forever and days. So what I was thinking about, again, how do you keep yourself moving forward, right? And I start thinking about, okay, how can we make this simple? You say, okay, well, it's 8 steps. It's not as that simple, but how can we define it and make it so individuals can say, okay, how can I be in the right framework to push ourselves forward? Because that's the important part. And the first one is self-assess. We talked about that. We've been collaborating about it. Okay, what do you really enjoy to do? What's your why? Why are you doing what you do? How is you make that next step, right? And being able to say, okay, here's what I like, here's what I not, right? Because that's going to help you go to the next part as far as that ideal role. And again, that's the T within strategy, right? When you target that ideal role, then now you're starting to define what you really want to do, and be able to say, okay, what's available? Let's take a look at that too, right? But it helps you, again, define kind of your own job description, because when you're refining that profile. And I say refining profile because you talk about LinkedIn, your CV, your resume. You talk about how you're doing it, how you communicate yourself. It could be cover letters. You start looking at that, right? But as you do that, it's easy to get stuck in the rut. And the whole idea behind the next one is alignment. You talk about alignment with others. This is talking to your peers, just like what we're doing right now. You see Sasha and I, we're having fun bantering back and forth, and there's some additional dialogue here, which is great. That alignment is what keeps us going. They get involved with the community, chat, be part of webinars, et cetera. I promote that all the time, even within the co-op, right? It's like, okay, if you want to get yourself out there, hey, I'll help you. I will totally help you make it happen. There's lots of friends that can do that, right? Because when you start doing that, you find out who your tribe is. Because it's about, in the take root with your tribe, you're actually in there. You're around a community that cares for you and you're caring for them. You might say, well, that's kind of mushy. Well, We need a little bit of mushy every once in a while, right? We're IT folks. We can be very logical. But when you start taking root with your tribe, you're able to say, okay, we got this. And it helps you also figure out, further refine where you want to be. And the next one is expand the awareness and visibility, is being able to say, okay, let's figure that visibility out, because when you take root with the tribe, right, and you're able to further expand that awareness, is to say, okay, now let's talk to others. Whether you just say you had that getting ready for the interview, you're getting prepped for it, you talk with peers, the awareness is out there, you're starting to expand your own insight and grow. Because typically what happens in these scenarios, we haven't helped ourselves grow. You can say, okay, well, there's certain limitation. Great. How can you grow and make that happen? That's your growing your capabilities, because those outcomes is what helps you do. That's what I've done for years. Did I start being like all the knowledge all for what I do? And I'm not trying to be knowledge, because I've always said, if talk to somebody that says they know everything, you need to run from them, right? That's in being able to grow your capabilities, even for what I've done as a baseline inventory manager, consultant. Trust me, when the Olympics happened in 1996, I was not in Atlanta, which is where I was based, right? At the time, I was actually on projects doing baseline inventories. In that standpoint, because that's what I was required to do at that point. Sometimes you have to figure out how to do that, but I will say understanding that data accuracy of doing that was huge. It's helped me my entire career, right? And run some of those capabilities. Public speaking, this happenstance. I've now been a public speaker for over 25 years because I was able to talk at a conference. Great, that's how's your capabilities. And the last one is yield that align role, right? This is where you go in immersion. Understand, okay, you're getting ready for that interview. Immerse yourself. Understand who you're talking to, who you need to talk to. Get your prep for your questions for them. Don't just receive questions, but put it out there. Because when you do that, they realize you're interested in the role. And the reason why I provide this whole strategy, and that's put that out here, is it provides you kind of that framework to move that forward. So that's where this is all coming from, Sasha.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I guess that was a quick walkthrough this strategy, finding your job strategy. There's a lot to talk about it. I mean, we can talk for hours. And by the way, I'm very grateful for the questions that we see in the chat. And if you have any more, then yeah, absolutely fire them up. We have a couple more minutes, although this is a live event. My kids are knocking on the door downstairs. I probably need to go and open the door. So on that note, then, because of the changes circumstances and us running towards the end of this live, please let us know if you want to continue this conversation. Because as Bill said, we can talk about this for ages, and especially if you want to take part in this conversation as one of the, in the room, being here on screen. Please let us know about it. Let's have a chat. And if you join the co-op and talk to Mr. Bill, we have quite regular, not as regular as they used to be, meetups on Zoom in a closed room where we can discuss things that we probably wouldn't discuss in public. And I sometimes wish we recorded those, and some of those bits that are not as painful could be published as fantastic podcasts. So yeah, please stay in touch. Please send us your questions in DMs. This will stay recorded both on LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you have any questions after this live event, I promise you we'll take them. But again, if you want us to continue this conversation, please let us know, because we're right now considering the option whether we want to make a few events like that. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely. It's been fun.
Real fun. Yeah. Have a great weekend, everyone.